John Searle, naturalist, he says this: our conception, quote, our conception of physical reality simply does not allow for radical libertarian freedom. This is a box. Free will does not fit in this box if we're just meat machines and parts of nature. Naturalist Will Provine, he said this, quote, free will as traditionally received simply does not exist. There is no way the evolutionary process as currently conceived can produce a being that is truly free to make choices. Why? Because we're just pieces of nature. You can't, what is required, it seems, for free will is a soul, something not bound by the laws of nature, chemistry and physics, to make choices. Okay? Evolution can't produce souls or minds. That's just what these guys mean. Physicalism says no superpowers. Okay? So it's not enough to just tell some kind of just so, Rudyard Kipling just so story that some organisms mutated and had free will and that natural selection operated on these traits. Okay? I hear this all the time. But so yeah, I'll spare you the evolutionary explanation. But basically, the power of free will, if it's real, it's like an X-Man power. The power to choose between Dr. Pepper and Diet Coke. If it's a real ontological choice, this is something that no other part of nature has, whether it's a lava flow, a river, rock formation, waterfall. None of those things have choice. Guess what? Our brains are just made of atoms. Atoms are governed by laws of nature. We don't have any choices either. And if we really do have choices, something weird is going on. And personally, I'm convinced of this. And this is one of the reasons why I reject naturalism. I believe in free will, so I cannot believe in naturalistic evolution. God may have used evolution and inserted human souls, but the naturalistic grand story, I think, is false because of this. All right. So, Daniel Dennett, he does a good job. Actually, I think it shows the problem with the worldview. But Daniel Dennett really does try to solve this problem of free will. I don't think this compatibilist story works, but read his stuff. He's the best naturalist out there. See if he can convince you. Okay? All right. Another problem with naturalism. Something that's normative is a way that things ought to be. And if we don't reach that goal, then it's deficient or not as good. So, types of normative properties, ethical properties or moral properties, goodness, badness, rightness, wrongness. Okay? Kicking a puppy is wrong or it's bad. Okay? Petting a puppy and loving on it is good. It's nice. It's right. Okay? What does that mean to say, remember we got to shove these in the box. What does it mean to say things are right or wrong? These are just bizarre non-physical properties, if they exist. These objective moral properties. Okay? But if Darwin's right, or naturalistic evolution is true, there are no purposes in nature. We're just meat machines. We don't have any choices anyway to follow these or not. But where would these even come from if they existed, unless there is a God? And even if they existed, how could humans think about them? And thirdly, the third problem is how can we follow these principles? All right? So we're deceived into thinking these as right and wrong exists on naturalism. We're deceived into thinking we have free will. Alright, moral properties. Human beings should not be murdered. Genocide is wrong. Okay, it's wrong to sell my niece into the local brothel and the sex trafficking industry. I know that that's wrong. Absolutely. Because I know she's precious and she should be loved and protected, not exploited and abused. And I know that that's right and wrong. So I'm going to dig my heels in on this. Okay? Aesthetic properties like beauty. Okay? We also have intellectual properties. Okay? So these follow from kind of logical, rational, irrational. What is, when I teach critical thinking, what is good evidence? When is something relevant, is a good piece of evidence for the conclusion, okay? In science, what is the data that's relevant and serves as good evidence for this, for the truth of this conclusion or not, okay? These are very important, and these are very strange if naturalism is true. These are very weird things that we have to shove in the box of naturalism. Okay? Now, some of the naturalists I know, they just say these are habits of thinking. It's just how we evolve. So one of my best friends is a Humean. He's like, yeah, moral properties, it's just how we evolve. So enough human beings, we have these habits. We say things like, that's courageous, that's wrong. But we're not talking about objective moral properties. It's just habits. It's language. We can think of these concepts and numbers. But some people say no. These intellectual properties are just habits. So modus ponens, these habits are just how we evolve. And evolution, if it occurred on another planet like Cybertron or Vulcan or Tatooine, evolution happens there. They have different laws of logic, that type of thing. Now, for me, I can't deal with it. I'm going to dig in my heels and say no. Intellectual properties, these kind of things, reason still works the same on Tatooine as it does on Earth. It doesn't matter how evolution happened. Cybertron, rationality, modus ponens works on Cybertron just like it works on Earth, and so on. 2 plus 2 equals 4 in any planet, regardless of evolutionary history. But these are difficult to solve on naturalism. Okay? Let me read this slide here. Moral properties like goodness, badness, rightness, and wrongness are not physical properties. Therefore, there's no room in a physicalist ontological toolbox for these things. So naturalists have a difficult time of saying that it's always wrong to enslave a race or gender of people, or that it's always right to love and cherish your children, and always wrong to torture them. On naturalism, nothing can rise above a custom. Nothing is that important on this worldview. Mother Teresa, it might follow, is as good as Hitler or Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay? So, remember this. Wrong to torture your child instead of loving her. And doesn't modus ponens work on any planet? That's it. Alright. Atheist J.L. Mackie said this in 1977. Moral properties constitute so odd a cluster of properties and relations that they are most unlikely to have arisen in the ordinary course of events without an all-powerful God to create them. Okay? He wrote this in his book, Ethics, Inventing Right and Wrong. Now, what Mackey's saying is, yeah, these things, especially moral properties, they don't fit in the ontological box that naturalism gives us. Okay? Where in the world would these come about? How would they come into existence for meat machines to think about? Okay? Jean-Paul Sartre, French existential atheist philosopher, said this: if God does not exist, ethics needs to be radically modified. Quote, if God does not exist, we find no values or commands to turn to which legitimize our conduct. So in the bright realm of values, we have no excuse behind us, nor justification before us. We are alone with no excuses. Sartre, his solution: choose your values and morality. The only absolutes are free will, so it doesn't matter what you choose. The important thing is that you choose it. All right. Michael Roos, he's the ethics is illusory. It's a fiction. I appreciate that when someone says, love thy neighbor as thyself, they think they are referring above and beyond themselves. Nevertheless, such reference is truly without foundation. Morality is just an aid to survival and reproduction, and any deeper meaning is illusory. It's a fiction. So, basically, Roos says morality, moral properties, these normative properties don't fit in the box of naturalism, so we get rid of them. Okay? They're not real. Morality is it's just a fiction that we believe in to get through life, to preserve the DNA. All right? So for me, the founding fathers would not have tolerated this as rational. So the founding fathers would have found naturalism on this basis to be false. All right. Kai Nielsen, another atheist, says this, quote, we have not been able to show that reason requires the moral point of view, or that all really rational persons should not be individual egoists or classical amoralists. Reason doesn't with them or not. Free will. These things are impossible or very difficult to save if all we are is meat machines. Atomic theory matter. BB's moving around inside this thing, this skull right here. Okay? You can't shove these things into the box. Alright. Critique number 3. Naturalism eliminates love. Think about what's required to really say you're in love. What are the metaphysical components? You need free will, but on physicalism, love cannot be anything other than a physical relation between events. It cannot be what most people take it to be. It must be reduced to the chemicals between us, as Gavin Rossdale said. Okay? There's no freedom in love. We're not free to choose to love our spouse or children. We do or don't thanks to DNA and environmental causes. So you guys need to ask, is love real? Or can we reduce it and shove it into this box somehow as a byproduct of evolutionary processes? Okay? Let's go to 5 or 4. The problem of evil. Every worldview has a problem of evil. The theist, the personal theist, has a problem. Why would an all-good, all-powerful, all-loving God, why would this God permit so much evil in the world? Therefore, it's either God doesn't care no normative properties. So without good, you can't have evil. All right? Remember Darwin's dangerous idea, Daniel Dennett says, is nothing is wrong in the world. Why? Because there are no natures. There's no way humans ought to be. There's just habits of thinking. There's preferences. There's not a way we really ought to be. There's no objective right or wrong. There's no goal-directedness, purposiveness, teleology. So when 9/11 happens, we don't like it. It's not our preference, but nothing's wrong. Humans don't have nature. It's not the way we ought to be. We just have personal preferences. For me, I can't take it. I'm like, no, I know 9/11 was wrong. It is wrong to do what the hijackers did. You just don't do that. Sex trafficking is wrong. Okay, American-style slavery was wrong. All right? You did not abuse kids. Rape is wrong. That's not how we're supposed to be. That's not how the world is. Should be. So for me, I would much rather have the theist problem of evil myself, where I don't know why God permitted this evil. I would eat that. I would rather have that any day because I can trust a God. Maybe there's enough evidence to trust God. Happen to my family member, that's not wrong. Okay? That makes sense? Let me read this slide. Without the existence of objective goodness, there can be no lack of or privation of goodness. In other words, there can be no evil. While the problem of evil is one of the greatest challenges for the personal theist, it should be clear that every worldview suffers from some kind of problem of evil. The naturalist problem is to explain its appearance at all. Strict physicalists cannot believe in moral properties and moral evil. Remember, they just don't. That's why, I mentioned the quotes by J.L. Mackie and John Searle, okay, and Jean-Paul Sartre. Strict physicalists cannot believe in moral properties and moral evil. Since ancient atheists like Plato believe in non-physical properties, this is a possible route to go, though most philosophical naturalists would say it's impossible for physical beings to interact with non-physical entities. The problem is naturalistic evolution. That's a physical process. If naturalistic evolution is true, you can't save Platonism. Okay? That's the problem. And actually, yeah, William Lane Craig uses evil to show there is goodness in the God, or tries to argue that. The Switchfoot is a band that uses a similar argument in their song, The Shadow Proves the Sunshine. Okay, let me read the next slide. Naturalism, even if true, is irrational to believe because there's no normative intellectual properties. This is C.S. Lewis's argument in his book Miracles.